Okay. Okay, now let me get Steve Corbel in here, I hope. Where is he?
Do I push continue? Continue? This meeting is being recorded. Okay, continue.
Okay, Steve Corbel should be coming on now. Hold on 1 second.
Uh-oh. Says continue. Damn. Okay.
Bill Burley, you're good.
Am I good?
Okay.
You're good.
All right.
Just wait for Steve Morse to get organized.
All right, so everybody's here, I think, now.
Yep.
Okay, all right, first committee is finance. As you know, we switched it.
Yep.
So are you okay with me starting?
Yes, please.
Okay,
All members of the committee
so-
are present.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
All members of the committee are present.
Okay, all right. So first thing I have is the cash flow report. It's attached to your agenda, and this is what the graph looks like. The heavy red line is the current year. You can see it's right in the middle entering June. So everything is about normal and average. There really isn't a whole lot to say about it. And I am going to talk for a few minutes under item D about a couple of more things with finance that will explain more to you. But if you have any questions, I do have everything on there, the graph, and then you'll have expenditures right above it, and revenues right above that. And that's just the categories again. And the number you see there, I'm sorry, that you see in the graph here in the red line is the amount entering June. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You know what, I may have done this wrong. I should have put this, the graph should show entering July, and I didn't do that. I'm sorry, but entering July, it's like 1.7 million. I apologize. It's on your sheet.
Yep.
If you, at the end of the month, you had 1.3. No, that's right. Okay, no, I'm right. Never mind. I'm sorry. At the end of the month, you had 1.3 million plus going into July. So again, it's right in the middle. There's really not a whole lot to add to that, unless somebody has a question.
I think you're wrong for that.
Okay, my second item then, just a reminder, the capital improvements plan, we're in the middle of trying to get information from people. It's going to be pretty simple this year, again, only if you have new items or you want to make a change. And there's only been really 2 people have given me anything new or changes, which I'll collect and give to either the committees or to finance, since again, we're not really going through a full-blown capital plan process this year, and probably next year either. And I'm not going to go into all the reasons again for that, but you know that too. The third item, just to remind you, starting next month, we actually start 2022 budget preparation. I start that at a staff meeting, which will start again, actually starting tomorrow. I'm going to start staff meetings tomorrow again. But I will start that at the staff meeting in August, where I'll give the staff information, and I'll also copy you on it either at a meeting, at this meeting, or in your mailboxes, one or the other, that will have the usual things that I always put together for budget. And again, with the goal will be staff will create something. You can certainly input as you want or need, but staff will help me get a first draft to you for the meeting in October, and that starts in August. Any questions on those 2 items, the capital improvement plan or the, okay, then the third thing I have on here is the, I'm going to share my screen, this summary of accounts. And I just thought at the end of June, since we're 6 months into the year, you might want to just take a quick look at some of the key revenue and expenditure items. Now, Wendy's, the treasurer's information that she'll give you probably next week, will be a little bit more updated. She was off last week on vacation. So the numbers, especially with cash flow that I just showed you, and these numbers could change some because she may not have had time to make adjustments yet when I went into this morning. I waited till the last minute and got this done this morning. So I usually do wait for the last minute with most committee things. But anyway, it summarizes where we are year to date with earned income tax, real estate, RAD, cable TV franchise, deed transfer tax, and total revenue. And I'm comparing with where we were last year. Now, that may not be a fair comparison because last year was the pandemic, but we came out of the pandemic fairly decently. So it's probably still worth looking at the numbers. And as you can see, total revenue, we are up overall 5.2 million versus 4.6 last year. Realize, of course, last year we suspended some payments and extended deadlines and things like that. So that may again not be fair to compare that with last year.
Yeah, but Steve, doing those things managed to keep us from going into the red during the pandemic period. And I think it's important that we did that. And I appreciate your attention to those details as an operational matter when we were in the middle of the pandemic, because all the uncertainty, we had no idea whether our revenue was going to keep track or not. And I think the expense controls that were put in place really made a big difference. So I appreciate that we're going to be okay.
Well, I think that was council made that decision, so I'm not going to take credit for something you folks did, but that's certainly fine. Yes, I agree. That's something we should have done. Key expenditure items are there. I just gave you 3 categories because these are the major ones. Police, I show you overtime for police compared with last year, and you see it's down. And I show you total police expenditures compared with last year. It's down slightly too. Again, I show you public works overtime, it is up. Now realize we had a little bit more of a severe winter, among other things. And you'll see total public works expenditures looks like it's a lot over last year. Realize first, we did stop doing some things last year. But second, part of that is a bookkeeping thing, which Wendy may correct now that she's back from vacation. But the bookkeeping thing showed that we had last year had transferred money for traffic signal maintenance to liquid fuels, and she hasn't done that yet. So that showed a big negative for last year versus a positive this year. So that's one reason why there's such a difference between the 368,000 and the 197,000 last year. Okay. And of course, swimming pool, that's fully open. So I want you to take a look at the numbers she gives you next week. I didn't put any numbers in here because obviously that's changing a lot because we're open this year, and I'd rather you have up-to-date numbers from her. But obviously it's going to be more expenditures, but also more revenues that are in for the swimming pool. And overall, total expenditures this year are 3.8 million versus 3.5 million from last year. Everybody okay with that? You can read the details. And then I did give you a summary of other budgets, which you can take a look at. I won't go over. I do want to mention the last bullet point under notes is the 2020 audit report will be on the website soon if it's not already there. You'll have hard copies. We just got that at the end of June. It was a little late this year, but I had to get it in because we have to report to an organization called EMA, which I think is part of the SEC. Since we have a bond issue, we're required to regularly report, and I have to regularly give them information. In fact, monthly they ask me questions, but they do want the audit reports by the end of June, so I gave them that. And everything was fine with the audit. It'll be on the website. If there is anybody watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see it as well. There is nothing unusual about the audit. It shows the borough's in good financial shape. And the auditors agree. And of course, not everything is perfect. There's always some hitches here or there, but generally overall, we're doing fine. And you can read the rest of that. I'm not gonna go into that unless you have questions.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, and then finally, just for outstanding items, Tree and Shrub meets tomorrow, and you would ask them, and Dawn is aware of this. Dawn happens to be on here for the next committee. Dawn is going to bring up the fact that you asked them for their recommendations on financing tree service. So they'll meet tomorrow night for the first time since you asked them that. And then the federal funds for the American Rescue Plan were just received, 329,000 plus. You'll see that there under the second bullet point. That's the first installment. Next year is the second. Again, I put the summary of what you're supposedly allowed to use the money for. Wendy was able to find on the Treasury website from the Federal Register a little bit more detail. It's still not real specific, but you folks had suggested, at least a few of you had suggested the idea of using it for water or storm, storm and sanitary sewer. And that certainly is appropriate. That's something you have to obviously vote on and consider. So you have time to spend the money. You don't have to spend it right away again. It's not an emergency to make a decision. As far as I know, things like the Alcosan sewer line that we have to turn over to them but fix first, that possibly could come from that money. But you have to obviously decide
that's 239,000 or something in that neighborhood for the sewer upgrade for Alcosan. Is that correct?
I believe so. So it's approximately that, yes.
And it's less than the total amount, but
Yes.
it was
Yes.
within that ballpark of that first year. And I think that would be an appropriate thing to do. I mean, if
Right.
anyone has any other ideas. Mr. Oberlinger, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think we had some, not a lot, of COVID expenditure, buying masks, extra cleaning, all that. I think Wendy kept track of all that stuff. We should probably,
She did.
that should be probably one of the first things we charge against that money.
Yeah.
You
But I
could.
think even if we cover all of that, we can cover the Alcosan as well.
Yeah.
I mean, because those were not in the multiple hundreds of thousands.
Oh, I can ask Wendy to give you a summary next month if you want of how
Yes.
much we spent. So
Okay.
why don't you let me do that first? Because again, you don't have to make a decision immediately.
And I think there were some EMS and police overtime matters that went into that COVID matter as well.
Police probably, but again, some of that, don't forget, this is the second time we got money. And
Okay.
some of
Some
that
of it we
did go
covered
last
already.
year at that 125,000, I think it was.
Okay.
In any case, I'll make sure that I ask her to summarize that for August, and I'll give that to you, and then you can go from there. And we can try to pin Dave down. I know they haven't signed, everybody hasn't signed the memorandum of understanding yet. But for the Alcosan sewer line, but I'd like to make sure that we're absolutely sure what that number is from Dave. So we
Yes.
should make sure we ask him in next month. Marcus, I'm sorry.
I think our goal should be that we have it as part of our next year budget, you know, like how we spend that money and that we have plans in our budget next year. I think it would be probably a good timeline and gives us enough time to think about it.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Good point.
Yeah, but Dave should be able to give us the data on exactly what it will cost us for that storm sewer upgrade component. I think between that and Wendy giving us the data on our COVID related expenses, we would have a good idea of whether it will fit into that American Rescue Plan fund.
I think the only hang-up is that we need to make sure everybody is good with that memorandum of understanding, all the other communities.
Right.
I don't know if everyone's signed off on that yet, and I know Dave's working on that. Steve Corbel obviously put it together.
Right.
So I'm not exactly sure where it stands with the other communities. I haven't heard anything negative,
No.
but I don't know for sure.
I can just chime in if you would like me to
Yes.
give you the brief update, which is there have been, some solicitors and other communities waking up and having comments about the agreement. So we're working through those. There was a comment from Turtle Creek. There's a comment from Braddock Hills. So we're just trying to work through that. I do know that Churchill has adopted it. And they adopted it in the same manner that we did, which is, I'm sorry, my camera's still not on. I didn't realize my camera wasn't on, even though I'm like staring at the screen. They have, just as we did, adopted it with language that allows the solicitor to approve the final version. So not a big deal, but it's just whenever you're dealing with a dozen or so municipalities, there's just a little bit of time there. But none of the comments are around, we don't want to participate in this. It's more legal, in the weeds, legal stuff that that I'll work out with everybody.
You're not seeing any problems in getting that agreement signed in any case?
No.
Okay.
I'm not.
Good. Okay, good enough.
Okay, I don't have anything else to report unless you have a question for me, but for items 2 and 3, I will share my screen with those documents that are attached. so you can
If you
discuss them.
could put up the table from the actuarial study, which is the next item.
Okay, I
remember
have,
Mock and Hop gave us a report, which you've had in your hand to review for the last 2 months, I think. And they've made some recommendations about the actuarial assumptions for the pension plan document. And there you can see that on our screen.
well, sorry, no, I'm sorry. Wait
No.
a minute. Ay.
It was a document. I had it on my screen, but now it went away.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
On
Wait a
there.
minute.
The valuation that was initially coming forward as of January 2019 was $642,000. And if they made some recommended updates on the assumptions that went into computing that, and it would then be 610,000 if we adopt their recommended changes to the assumptions. So I would like to recommend that we do that. The valuation assumptions prior to 2019 are no longer valid, in my opinion, and so we will need to move to the ones that they recommend.
This is the non-uniform one too. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, that's similar.
Pension fund. So if people have had a chance to review this, do you have any questions about it?
I mean, I don't think there's anything
Downstairs.
different.
Downstairs.
Really different anyway. I agree. It just follows their recommendation.
Yeah, I read through the whole report, and I think it makes sense to, I think we could argue about what they're assuming about inflation because nobody knows, but I'm not going to go in a direction different from our accounting firm. I think they know more about how this all works than any of us do, and I think their recommendations seemed valid to me. So if everyone isn't comfortable with that, I would like to put that on the agenda to approve on the 21st so that we can get this, into motion. Is that all right with everyone on the committee? Are you okay with that? That we would take their recommended assumptions for the period in question.
I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that as well, Patty.
Okay, good enough.
I will double check with Mark and Hop to make sure that the motion is worded correctly.
That there are no adjustments made or anything like that, because of the report they gave us is a couple months old now, but I think it still stands as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it has to be two separate motions or not, but I'll double check that before.
I think usually in the past, I think we had two separate motions.
I think so too, Marcus. I agree.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so we do one taking their recommendations and one approving the amount. So if we could prepare that for the July 21 agenda, I think that would be acceptable. Okay. Any other discussion on that? Anyone have any further questions about that?
No.
Okay. All right. Regarding the bond issue items for consideration in the 500,000 for our bond issue, I've had a recommendation from Mr. Erblinger, which I agreed with, and I haven't received any input from anyone else. Do you have any other comments from any members of the committee?
Maybe we should refresh what we're talking about. Basically, if you did the math, we had like 4 or 5 Westinghouse rec line items.
Right.
Add those together, the backhoe and one public works truck, it was like almost on the dollar exactly the amount we need.
Right.
So I recommend doing all the Westinghouse rec, the backhoe, and the public works truck. Obviously, the backhoe we should approve today. The rest we don't have to.
Would you want the? I guess the question would be, and I'm not sure. I know Jimmy's here with sitting in with Mr. Tomasic, but I'm not sure if he has an answer yet. I don't know what the total will be 5-year lease purchase versus full. Yeah, but we could, I could put that on as a motion to approve right away next week, if you're okay with that. And then the other ones we'll have to gather bids or other information from it. But if those categories that Mr. Erblinger came up with is agreed to by everybody, what I'll do is
comments from anyone else. So I didn't know if anyone had any further input on it, but I agree with Mr. Erblinger about that list of.
On Wednesday, we only need to do the backhoe. Set that in motion. The rest is not really urgent in that sense.
Right. Well, then
Patty, I had agreed with Marcus too whenever he brought this up. So I'm all for getting the Westinghouse, all the Westinghouse stuff done.
What I'll do is I'll summarize Marcus's recommendations under general report. except I'll add the backhoe to it, and I'll go with whatever the best option is for the, well, actually, probably the backhoe makes more sense just to pay the whole thing.
Absolutely, because you're going to
You
pay
know,
interest if
But
you lease it.
let me make sure, because you have
Yeah.
to use that money at a certain time. But let
Right.
me just make sure when talking with Jimmy, and I'll have the right motion on there for that, and then I'll mention the rest of it under general report.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So we have transportation alternatives set aside that we need to be dealing with. And I wondered if
If you remember, Patty, that was from last month when I showed you a number of different grants that you had asked me to take
Yeah.
a quick look at. And you suggested that was the one you wanted to consider this month.
Yeah, I think if we can move forward with that one, I know the active transportation plan is in giving several draft, what they're calling catalyst projects. And I would like to see if we can find resources to fund some of those, especially the crazy steps repairs. I think if we can put a priority on that, that would be an important thing, especially a number of citizens have become vocal about the crazy steps. It came up today also at the Woodland Hills Climate Action Plan visioning session, because students use
They
those.
seem to fit really nicely in that description you have.
Yes.
Like, recreation, rail, and safe routes to school. Like the Woodside to Woodside shortcut, it's like a heavy school use by students.
And it doesn't require a match for us. So if we can achieve this grant fund, then that would be something we don't have to put a match in, and it would take it out of our capital budget. We have applied for a total of 4 grants. We've received 3 of them, and I think we're going to get $5,000 as well, although I haven't been officially notified of that yet. But we should hear about that one in another few weeks. So I think it's important to keep this moving, because that would be a visible and tangible evidence to the public that we're actually working on this project and moving it forward.
Patty, can I interrupt a second?
Yeah.
Is this an item that is going through the people that are the Walkworks? I forget that McMahon.
They can certainly help us with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you'll let me know what we need to do when. In other words, we're not doing anything immediately, like right now, but
no,
soon.
we need to file an intent to file by the 10th of September. So I just wanted to make you aware that there's going to be some significant work that has to be done in order to file for this. We'll need public works input, we'll need estimates and things of that nature. But I think given the fact that we have an active transportation plan in motion already, and we're, marching along, it fits with our comp plan, it fits with our energy plan, we're in good fit to acquire some additional funds for implementation money. Okay. The last item I have on our agenda, I would like to see if we can find money in the coming year budget to do or somehow obtain formal updated energy audits of all of the borough property buildings other than the new borough building, so that we have a way to do triage on improvements and repairs on the buildings to make best advantage and save on our energy accounts. I've been trying to pull the data together on the electricity, gas, water, sewer, and other costs for all the buildings, all the utility costs for all the buildings in a separate spreadsheet. I continue to hack away at that as I have time, but there are a number of those that I feel we're spending a lot of money on, and we could be tightening them down a good bit. So the best way to begin that process of identifying cost-efficient things to do is to start with a good energy audit. And I think we're going to need to pay for one because you can't, really get something for free anymore. The utilities don't do them for free for buildings like ours. So I just wanted to see if any of you have strenuous objections to that. I can get some estimates of what it might cost to do our buildings and see if we can go forward in that, so that it guides us a little bit on where we spend money on capital improvements. Marcus.
Yeah, I'm okay with getting quotes, because I think it all hinges on cost. Obviously, if it's like $100,000 for a study, we don't want to do it, but we have to see. I agree to get the quotes.
Anyone have any objections? Any others, any suggestions or ideas about, how to go about that? If you know of anybody who does them free. I know there are some companies who do them free, but you have to be willing to enter into an energy performance agreement with them. And I don't know if we're ready to go that far yet. So I wanted to just see, first of all, what we could do, by doing an assessment, with some care. Okay. All right. Are there any other items under finance that anyone wanted to raise? That was all I have on our agenda right now.
I'm good.
I think we're good. Oh, the only other thing I am exploring is looking for some grant funds to investigate putting solar photovoltaic on the Public Works garage and the fire department roof, which have just had new roofs last year. The kind of programs that are available to commercial operations and to the residential sector are not available to public buildings. So I'm investigating what kinds of things are available for public building installation of photovoltaics. And I'll let you know, what we come up with there. Marcus.
I mean, we have to probably do the same thing what we did with our main building. We did kind of like a hybrid.
Exactly.
Kind of
what we do is,
like
identify what the
kind of deal. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have
But
to,
they
there may be some grants that will pay it, so we don't have to spend so much on the power purchase agreement. I don't know what kinds of programs might be available that, we should be tracking. That is obviously the last resort. We enter into a power purchase agreement and do it the same way, but that would cost some money to us. So I'm trying to see if there's a way we can have something that doesn't require us to put money up front.
Yep.
Okay. All right, that ends my committee meeting at this time, unless someone has someone else to bring up. Thank you.
Okay, give me just a couple of minutes, Mr. Burley, and we can start planning. Less than just about 30 seconds, we'll start planning and zoning.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good, Mr. Burley.
All right.
I have no update for managers other than just the reminders that have been on there for a while, so you can move on from me.
All right. Thank you, Steve. I guess we move into Don.
Yes.
Don?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. In case you didn't know, just a little bit of information. Verizon has replaced all the telephone poles on Sharon Drive. Now, these poles are anywhere from 10 to 15 feet higher than the standard pole that was there. So I met with the management associate from Duquesne Light, and they got to come through and prune at least 15 more trees that need pruned in order to raise the wires up on the pole, the new poles. So in case you get any calls, you'll know that that's what's taking place. Now, I asked her to be sure to try to do a decent job in pruning and not like they normally do. And she said that she would do her best to do that. So that's all I can really tell you at this point. I got a couple calls from residents about 3 weeks ago on St. Maurice, the sidewalk from St. Maurice up to our property at close to the ball field, about vegetation growing on the sidewalk and tree limbs hanging down. So I met with St. Maurice people, and they took care of their part right away. So I went with Centurion Commons and I talked to those people. So they called their maintenance people, and they said that half of part of that property that I needed taken care of was common ground. Mr. Corbel, can you, Steve, first of all, Steve, could you bring up that picture? Okay, there it is. Okay, there it is. As you can see, it's marked common ground, and I talked with Mr. Corbel on this matter, and he said that we could discuss it this evening. Steve, can you have some input on that?
Yeah, so the property in question, the common ground property, we investigated a similar issue near this. And I can't recall. I think it bordered Fillmore in some manners, Mr. Morse. I don't know if you can zoom out a little bit, but we did engage a title search individual to look at what that property was, who owned it essentially. And I think if I remember correctly, it was titled in the diocese name. So
I can't show it, Steve, just so you know. This is just a frozen picture.
okay, that's fine. I think it's up behind Centurion Commons, but regardless, if we're to figure out exactly who owns this or who is responsible for it, we would need to do the same thing. So before I went to the expense of engaging somebody who would do this for, $1,500 or probably less, I just wanted to make sure there were no major objections on the part of council. And if there weren't, then I'll just move forward with it. I'll try to engage the same person that looked the last time to cut down on the costs. So anybody have an objection?
No.
All right, hearing none, I'll work on that, and Mr. Branzel and I will get that squared away so we can have that part maintained in the future.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
Steve, could you pull up the pictures of Cascade, 259 Cascade, please? These are the pine trees that last month the gentleman requested that we remove the trees because they were in the borough right of way. And I said, well, we never planted a pine tree in the borough right of way. They were probably planted by the original owner. And he came to you folks and wanted the trees removed. So I took some pictures, as you can see, mainly the bottom picture, you can see where the top broke off of the one pine tree, which is totally dead, which it shows in this picture there. There it is right there, Steve. You can see where that tree broke off. I was just wondering if anyone has made a decision on what we should do with those two trees.
We haven't made a decision. It's in discussion. So the one tree is dead, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I would say that would be our responsibility to take down. As to the other one, I do not know the extent of any damage. It's our responsibility to take care of any kind of damaged trees that are hazardous, okay? But we do not have to remove trees simply because there's a request to do so. We don't get into any kind of utility lines. That's all associated with Duquesne Light or the cable company. So none of that is part of what we do. So if that tree needs to come out, then it should come out. The other one, I don't know what the status is.
Well, it's on its way out too. It's got a little bit of green on it, but not very much.
I thought we wanted to have Steve to research that, what our legal obligation is. Because I thought we didn't plant the tree, even if it has to come out, the resident has to do it.
Without getting into details, the ordinance is clear that trees located in the right of way are the borough's responsibility.
That's right. That's correct.
Okay.
Regardless,
That's
there
correct.
is no limit as to or restriction as to who planted the tree or other items.
I went and looked at those trees on that property, and one of them is in fact standing dead, and the second one is already mostly dead. It isn't viable at this point. It is falling branches, and it looks like some kind of I don't know, something's eating it. I'm not sure. So I would say that if it's in the right of way and it is basically standing dead, it is in danger of having the same thing happen to that one, that the one that the top blew off on. When we're getting these big storms, a tree in that kind of weakened condition is going to be a hazard. So I would say if it's in the right of way, we should take them both down.
Totally agree, because
I
we,
agree.
it's a big risk we're taking by not taking care of that.
Right. And I think it should be stipulated that from now on, everybody understands that any tree in the borough right away belongs to us and it's our responsibility, whether we planted it or not.
Exactly.
Yes.
And we only take trees down if we have to for safety reasons, or not because
Exactly.
someone doesn't like the tree.
Exactly.
Correct, I agree.
Okay. So Mr. Branzel will take care of scheduling that then to remove.
I
the
will.
trees? Okay.
I'll schedule it tomorrow, yes.
Thank you.
That's all that I really have.
Oh, wait a minute. We have the complaint from Mrs. Madden.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you.
Well, I
okay.
thought that was part of the tree thing.
I didn't see it in here, but okay, that's fine.
Okay, so everybody should have gotten a copy of that a complaint that she sent in. And this would be one of the situations where, again, if it's in the borough right away, it's our responsibility. So I'm looking at this, I guess it's an email or a letter to the council members. And there's some conversation which went on between her and I guess Bill she's referring to is Goral. And there's something about it being on a list for next year. I don't ever remember discussing that in any council committee member meeting or as a member of council at any time. So let me be clear here. No individual council person has the authority to tell somebody something's going on a list or something's going to be cut down. All right. So if somebody would like to have a tree pruned or somebody would like to have it removed, what they have to do is approach council, or I would suggest the tree and shrub committee. There is no chairman to the tree and shrub committee as far as I can remember. There's a liaison, which right now is Dawn. I used to be in that position years ago. And what they would have to do is they would have to petition either council and or the tree and shrub committee to remove that tree or prune it or whatever the case might be. That's the process that's in place at this time. If they want to take it down, I believe, and I can't attest to this 100%, but I believe there is a process in which somebody can ask to take a borough tree down. It could then be permitted, but at their expense. And I'd have to go into the rules and regulations associated with the tree and shrub that they put into place to verify that. And I think that would be Dawn's venue. So if there is no reason for the tree to be taken down, it's not a hazard, it's not a danger. I can't see why we would spend the money to do so. And then, as I said, there are options.
If the issue that the tree is growing into the utility lines, the utilities take care of pruning those. People are not usually allowed.
Yeah, Patty, it's not growing into the wires on the pole. I actually stopped over there and had a conversation with her because she called me. They're actually growing through her power lines from the pole to her house. So she is concerned with the storms. Her wires are entangled in the tree already. And what I had told her, and she misunderstood it, and she's on the same page now. I told her after speaking with Dawn that Dawn has it on the pruning list for every year, not as a removal. It has to be pruned every year. It has to be removed because as it grows bigger, it's growing directly through her power lines. So her power lines are coming from the pole, which is at the top of your picture, going straight through the center of the tree. And she was outside whenever Ted Gilbert planted the tree, and he planted it a little bit too far from where what needed to be planted because now it's growing directly through. The lower wire that you see in the picture in the blue sky is actually her cable wire. The upper wire that you see going through the lines, you could see it on the right side and then The ones on the left of the tree are going to the actually the neighbors. But the top wire that you can only see like an inch or two of is her power lines, her main power to her house. The tree is growing directly through the main power lines to her house. That is why she was concerned. So
Well,
that's
As I
just,
said
be addressed
before, the electric company takes care of that. There are many
no,
trees.
no, they do
that
not.
have-
They do not trim the lines going back to your house. They don't do that.
Would you please be quiet while I'm speaking?
This is
As I said, the utility company is responsible for those lines. Whether or not they decide to prune them is up to them.
It's our tree growing through her lines going to her house. It's not at the Duquesne Light pole. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. I think you're missing that this is her house. This is her house feed. If the tree breaks or the wind blows it and it snaps the cable, she'll have no power. The whole
And then
tree won't
Duquesne
have.
Light would have to come out and repair it.
Oh my God. You're responsible. Wait, Bill. You're responsible from the pole into your house. I've replaced numerous, it's called a service line. I've replaced numerous service lines. So I know this. The electrician wires it from the actual pole at Duquesne Lights Point to your meter head that's at the top, or to your weather head, sorry, down to your meter head that actually counts and feeds and records what you use per month. So that's how it works. Duquesne Light will not trim. I mean, they'd be trimming everyone's house. That's not how it works, just so you know.
Well, just so you know, yes, it does work that way.
I think we just do the research. I don't know, we can decide that today. Either one of you is right.
Donna, have you ever seen any Duquesne Light company ever trim someone's service lines to their house?
Not that I can recall. Now, they may have, but I don't recall of any. But I do know that they trim all the trees in the right of way, the burr right of way.
And I do think like residents are in charge of their gas line coming from the main gas line to the house and water lines. I just don't know about electricity. But I think for gas and water, it's definitely the residents' thing.
Correct.
If something's wrong with the gas line and water line coming from the main line to your house, the rest, that's why I think Duquesne actually offers insurance for that stuff.
That's correct, Marcus. They offer it for water and gas. They don't offer it for their service lines because the service line is included. You as a homeowner are in charge of that.
And we just need to do the research. I don't know who's right.
From
Okay.
the picture of that tree, I think a proper pruning job should take care of the issue for more than a year. I haven't seen it up close. I will go and look at that site on the address and see. But I think if you get a good pruning company in there, they can prune.
But again, we have to do it the same thing what we did with the Cascade pine trees. We have to just do the research. You know, initially, when we heard about the pine trees in Cascade, we thought we don't have to do anything about those. We just do the research and see who's in charge of that.
I would just like to state that if you go to, all right, any of the houses, you will see that there are utility lines that run through trees all throughout the borough.
Yeah, I have in my house, same thing. Utility.
So that means that they're responsible, and I have had cable lines come down, for example, from tree branches breaking that are the borough trees, and they come out and they replace the line or redo it. I know that for a fact. It was done at my house.
Patty, if you do go out there, whenever I looked, it's like the main trunk of the tree. So it's like the main artery of the tree that is like right on the line. So unfortunately, if you take that main artery, that's kind of like where all the branches come off of that kind of tree, which I don't know what kind of tree that is. Dawn knows.
Cleveland pear.
Cleveland pear, that's what it is. So you feel free to go out there and take a look at it, Patty. It's just, it was poorly planted. It was just poor planning from day one.
Well, I think we need to make a decision on how we're going to handle it. I mean, like Bill's saying, it's a responsibility of the power company, but we have
Actually,
a
Angelo just posted like a little link. I'm looking it up.
Mhm.
So
If we start cutting down branches
Yeah,
and
it says-
trees.
can I just read
every-
that thing what Duquesne's published? Service top. While DLC maintains the service top wire, you are responsible for pruning or removing any tree branch or vegetation that may interfere with your electric service. So I guess Bill is right. It's a property owner's responsibility to do the pruning. So all solved. It's in that Angelo will put like a link into the chat. So
Thank
can
you,
all-
Angelo and Marcus.
Okay. Is that
So we just have to basically send that link from Angelo to that property owner, and then she will have it.
good? Anything else, Don?
No, that's all I have.
Okay. Any other planning and zoning items need to be discussed? Okay. Thanks, Steve. We're done.
Okay, I just need a few seconds and we'll go to Kyle, Committee of the Whole. I'm fine, Mr. Tomasic, whenever you're ready. Okay, just a couple of quick things for me. If you're okay with it, the folks that are putting together that veteran sculpture for that apartment building would like some time at the meeting on the 21st. She said 5 minutes to update council on the status. And I told her I had to bring it to Mr. Tomasic and council to see if that's how you wanted to proceed. Is that okay for her to be on the agenda? I'll just give her a place to talk about during reports then toward the beginning, if that's okay.
I went to the community meeting that they had on Thursday evening at the Braddock and Ardmore building, and their interest is that we give them a letter of endorsement for the project that they can use to help them in their fundraising. So that's basically what they want from us, is just a statement that we endorse the project and support it. They may at some point ask us to make a contribution to the fund, but they're not doing that right now. So, and we don't have to answer that, obviously, but they're doing quite an interesting project. I think you'll be impressed.
Okay, I'll put that on the agenda then. The second item, just a reminder that there is an executive session scheduled for July 21st following the in-person meeting. As you know, it is a live in-person meeting here in the building. And then finally, just to update you on three things. We're waiting for Duquesne Light to okay the LED street lights on Fillmore. They did have the application, and it sounds like they're going to okay it, but I haven't gotten that officially yet, so just so you know. And again, just a reminder, you should take a look at some of the other places where they put LED lights in case you want to upgrade the lights. You can do that. No hurry on that. That's purely up to you. Chalfont contracts with police and public works. Mr. Tomasic had asked our treasurer to put some numbers together for both agreements based on the labor negotiations as we know them now, and as he recommended based on police, since that's not been settled yet. And she did that and submitted that to the group on council that is working with Chalfont as well as Chalfont itself. And of course, everybody will see that before you would approve anything. It's not necessarily final yet, but they do have that for them. And then finally, just something I had forgotten about last September, you folks had authorized me to dispose of some surplus property that was no longer working, computer monitors in this case, and I forgot to do that. You did say it was okay for people to bid on it. I'm the only one apparently who bid on it, on one of them. Nobody seems to want the other one, so I'm just letting you know I'd forgotten back in September to dispose of them. I'll have them properly disposed of using the waste management system through Jimmy as soon as I can. I apologize for delaying on that. That's all I have to report.
Okay, next up is Vine Alley. So let me start by saying the following. The ordinance in place that states no throughway has been in effect since 2000, I believe it is. All right. There is no other ordinance dealing with Vine Alley. Now, what brought this to my attention has to deal with the public works. We had some signs that were put up, some signs that were taken down that didn't meet the ordinance. All right. And these guys were concerned. Mr. Goral stated that that was an asinine concern or was some kind of joke. Well, not too long ago, Mr. Goral turned in a public works employee with some claim that they were associated with borough property and some kind of ill gains. That turned out to be completely false. Okay, so these guys know they're being watched. Secondly, we have a police officer who has camped himself out down there, has blocked traffic, meaning that these guys can't go back and forth through the alleyway between the two buildings down there, and for no apparent reason. Okay, and this is the same officer that took pics of me and then tried to defame me with it, who put me on the camera of the police car in violation of borough policy. So they are concerned about what somebody might be doing when they're up there or down there doing their job, such as going down a one-way. That's not asinine, that's scary. Number two, nobody has the unilateral authority to change or alter any ordinance enacted by council. Only council can do that. Now, there are many stories about this Vine Alley thing with the signage and so on. The idea that the one-way was ever there is nonsense. It was never there. Whoever put the signs up was not following the borough ordinance. I've been told that there have been different chiefs, the manager, the public works foreman, who have engaged in modifying the signage in various ways. That should not have been done and should not happen in the future. I'm upset that it happened like this. I'm not suggesting that anybody had motives that were insincere, but that the motives were not proper. And I don't ever remember being approached at any time about changing any of this signage. Presently, we have an ordinance that prevents traffic in either direction, meaning that the only people that live there will be the ones that will be permitted access along with our public works department. This would prevent the traffic as described from Chief Mastrandeo from skipping the red light and then rushing up through that alley like I've seen him do many times, along with our public works foreman who's with us, Mr. Thielager. So in my opinion, the present ordinance is the safest for everybody concerned, and there's no need to change it. However, if somebody wants to change that ordinance, regardless of their wealth, regardless of their standing in the community, all right, there's a process. You come to council, you petition them. Council then has to decide whether or not to move on it. Traffic study has to be done. We then review it, and then we would make the change. Myself, I do not think there is any reason for any changes to be made on that alleyway.
Can I make a comment? Bill, did you say yes? Or?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
As far as I know, we have an ordinance to say no throughway, but we don't have signs for that. So all what I think we need to do is put a sign on top and bottom, no throughway, which will prevent the Dunkin' Donut people or anyone else who wants to use it as a throughway to use it. So we have our public works, residents, EMS, employees, they can still use it, and I think they have a right to use it, they should use it, but no one from Dunkin' Donuts or anyone else can use it if you have a sign, no throughway. And in my mind, to be extra clear, we should even say on the sign, only residents, EMS, and Forest Hills Public Works employees in the trucks or not, they can use it. So just to be extra crystal clear, who can use that?
Well, Marcus, this should be sent back to the Public Safety Committee, and then you should discuss that at that committee in the next month, because Frank, who sat here or was on the Zoom call, said he sits there and watches those people come off of the Ardmore all the time and go up that alleyway.
So we need to stop that. We can kick it back to public safety. We can talk about it, how we fix
Right.
it. Yes, the ordinance, I think we just need to have proper signs. Put the signs up according to our ordinance.
So unfortunately, Marcus, I mean, I agree with the no throughway. It doesn't really matter what it says, but at the end of the day, it's been do not enter for 30 years. The do not enter sign's been there for 30 years. I get it wasn't an ordinance. And if someone got pulled over going that way, you couldn't give them a ticket because it wouldn't hold up in court. I've already heard the whole spiel, but just so everyone's aware, it's been there for 30 years. That's how it always was. It was deter people from cutting through to get onto Ardmore 30 years before Dunkin' Donuts was ever even thought about. So that's number one. Number two is if we're going to put up all these no throughway signs, we're going to get into the same dilemma we're already in at Dunkin' Donuts and Fillmore Road. Everyone's still making the illegal left turn. So we don't have 17 cops on duty to patrol all these heavily congested intersections and exit points for both Dunkin' Donuts and Ardmore Boulevard. So by changing the ordinance or altering the ordinance, you could get a do not enter sign back up there. And then if someone's caught going down that way, then we could at least ticket them and smack them on the wrist, and then they won't do it again. But a no throughway versus a do not enter, no throughway, person's going to say, well, I wasn't going through, I'm going to Dunkin' Donuts, or I wasn't going through, I'm going to the Public Works. A do not enter means you can't enter. If a Public Works employee was really that concerned about going down a do not enter to perform their job duties, then we really need to question who is on our Public Works. I mean, if that was a serious question, and that's funny because it never came to me, and I'm the committee chair of Public Works, so I'm a little confused on where that information even came from. But that's just beyond me. I think that the ordinance needs to be altered and it needs to be added to say do not enter. The borough business was under the no throughway before. Well, there is no more borough business down there, so that's why they were taken down. There was no borough business. Our building was moved.
Jimmy, can you talk to that sign, the one-way sign that he talked about? Can you comment about the 30 years of no?
Yeah. Billy, the do not enter hasn't been up there for 30 years. Probably the do not enter were probably put up. Don't quote me on this. I'm thinking after the Burr building was moved, we put them up. After you guys moved.
So that's 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait, Jimmy, this is how I know that everyone's wrong in this conversation, because I was almost killed as a kid there when I was born in 15 Marion Avenue when I was a kid. I was a small kid. That's when the signs were put up. I'm now 31 years old. My parents were the ones that went to the council back then or whoever and got do not enter signs put up because I was almost hit by a car going 50 miles an hour down the alley as a 1-year-old child. So that's how long they've been up, 30 years. That I know it for a fact.
Well, I guess if you know it for a fact, then it's true. That's all I have to say about this item. The process is the process. The ordinance is the ordinance. It's in place. And if somebody wants to change, then that's what they have to do.
I will be speaking at next week's meeting for a change for do not enter and altering it as a no throughway / do not enter.
And you're welcome to do so, okay? So I think that concludes the Vine Alley discussion. All right, Avenue B steps, letter from Gail Evans Potter. Anybody want to comment on it?
Well, I would just comment that the Avenue B steps are among the steps that are identified as a catalyst project on the active transportation plan. And I would like to see if there are some of the measures that are in that active transportation plan that we can look at putting into the budget for next year. And I don't know if it's within the capability of our Public Works Department to repair all of these, but I would like to look at whether we can put some of them into our regular budget in the coming year, rather than wait for a whole cycle of grant making. I'm not sure that we know what the costs are right now. I think we have time to gather a little more information, and we'll be getting a draft report from our team, which I will share with you. I think you've already seen the first draft, which had those catalyst projects in it. It was section 4. And you can look at that and see what you think. But I would like to encourage us to put some of those repairs of the most commonly used crazy steps into the coming 2022 budget, and look at a way to find a way to cover those, at least the Avenue B ones and maybe 2 others that are used pretty frequently. Some of the other 7 or 8 of them have fallen into significant disrepair and are going to need a lot more reconstruction. But I think there are 2 or 3 that are still pretty heavily used, including those on Avenue B, the one on Woodside, and there's one, I believe, over in Edgewood that is pretty frequently used as well. So I would recommend that it be put into the budget review process and get some numbers for that.
Well, Patty, would you want that to be under Finance Committee?
Well, wherever
a
it fits
source
in the
of
budget, I
revenue?
think if people are happy to look at putting that into this year's budget, either as a public works project or maybe, I don't know if it's eligible to come into the liquid fuels paving budget, but I would like to, probably not, because it's not a traveled road. But I would like to get some definition on what the cost is. And I don't know if our consultants are going to cost out these catalyst projects. If they are, then we'll have good data for that. And if they're not, we can get that information in time to put it into the budget process. And I'm happy to communicate that to Mrs. Potter.
How about if we discuss this amongst Jimmy and Mr. Morris and maybe
Yeah.
Don Branzel?
Yeah,
There have been other steps that we have closed off, and then
yeah,
because there's not much use of them, and to repair them or to replace them it's cost prohibitive.
right.
Okay, so anyway, let's do that, and then if we can see if we can find a revenue source, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
All right, anybody else on that? Okay, the next one would be the future committees via Zoom. Are we going to continue in this regard with the committees on Zoom and then the meeting in person, if that's legal? Per Mr. Corbo, can we do that, Mr. Corbo?
You can't, currently, you can't deliberate and make any, take any actions. As I said before, you have to have a quorum of members present. There are bills in Harrisburg to change that, but for the time being, that's what we're stuck with. So committees are typically not engaged in those activities. Perhaps the committee of the whole could be an exception to that rule, depending on what's being done. Things that have happened this evening, I have no concerns with. Moving things to other committees, members saying they're going to bring something up at the meeting next week, those are all fine. But we just can't vote on things. And typically these meetings are to set the agenda that will be voted on in 2 weeks or a week. So if you like to continue to do this, I think we are able to do so. If there are any issues while I'm present, I will, speak up and let you know. And hopefully there'll be an amendment shortly. Bill, you're muted in case you're trying to say something.
Thank you. So to council members, what is your preference? It makes no difference to me. If you want to continue to do the committee on the Zoom, that's fine. If you don't, you want to do in person, that's okay. But we do have to have the in-person on the 21st. Marcus.
I personally like that system because I'm like right now in Minneapolis, but I would be fine with a hybrid, like if we maybe keep our committee meetings on Zoom until we have researched a hybrid solution. Because I think it's good to do in person and see us seeing each other. Yep. So I would like to keep it going until we have a hybrid solution, maybe research. And obviously it has to be low tech, like it has to be no extra effort on Steve Morse, and we have to properly research something. I think we should take the time and maybe keep going on Zoom until we have something in place.
Okay, so his recommendation is the committee's on Zoom, the in-person on the 21st in every month for the business meeting. Is there any opposition to that?
No, I think that's
Jack?
I think that's an excellent solution. And then we could take our time and find a good hybrid thing that will work, so we can. But we'll just stick with this until we figure out the best way to do it. So I'm with Marcus.
Okay, so that's what we're going to do if there's no opposition to it. That leaves us with the last item, the solicitor's report. Anything from you, Mr. Corbel?
Have nothing to report.
That concludes, Patty?
Can I have, I just wanted to ask your opinion. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to request this be put on the agenda. I've been getting bombarded left, right, and sideways with requests for commentary on the Churchill Amazon project. I don't believe we have standing to participate in their hearings on that, as we are not residents or taxpayers. And I don't believe we are contiguous to the property in Churchill at that location where it would be. So I don't think we have any legal standing to make commentary there, but I would like to send a letter of concerned interest to the council from us to them, recommending 3 things. One, that they look carefully at requiring a passive solar design for the building that will be there, and that they consider requiring an all-electric fleet in the delivery vehicles that are used there, and that they certainly attend to a stormwater management process that will prevent floodwater incursion by an expanded paved surface on their area that they're developing, because all of those things will affect the air quality in our town and the water and stormwater runoff that we have to deal with. I realize this can only be an advisory suggesting letter, but I wanted to know what you think about it. I'm happy to draft if you're interested in having such a thing go forward.
My personal opinion at this time is that we should not be involved in anything involving their decision-making process. I would never want to go into anybody's town and tell them what they should be doing when they're trying to develop their property. That's my personal opinion. That doesn't prohibit any one individual or group of council members from writing such a letter and sending it. And if that's the case, but this is my opinion. I just don't like to intervene. Some good points. I think the electric vehicle thing, but it is very, very good. And I think that's where they're going.
It is.
Yeah. But so, I mean, I don't really know how to get into that without feeling as though we're attempting to interfere. I would not want anybody to come down here and start telling us how to develop our properties. But that, again, that's my position.
I was thinking more in terms of an advisory letter stating that, we have received concerns from our constituents regarding air quality and stormwater management, and that we have found the beneficial effects of using passive solar design in our own building. I can show them our net negative energy bill, and that we are looking at also costs associated to us if their stormwater management is significantly changed from its current profile, which it would be from the way they're doing that. And there are things they can do, as we did, putting in bioswales in the parking lot, planting things that wouldn't be terribly cost prohibitive. So,
but that's not in our watershed.
well, it is and it isn't. It
isn't. It's over on the other side. It's on the other side of the road there. But like I said, how about if we just pause and give it some thought, talk to some council members, get their positions on it, and let's kick it around a little bit.
Okay.
And we got plenty of time. I mean,
Yeah, their planning commission is doing a hearing, but it isn't going to council probably for another month or two. So.
Okay. So let's kick it around a little bit, okay? Anybody else want to comment on that? All right, we're done.